That's so amazing. You have been saying in the book that there is a curse on Ravana and which has created this whole of Ramayana. Can you emphasize on that?
The curse?
Yes. And how the Ramayana got created.
Well, there were several curses that were uttered because at that time, that's how the laws of karma were activated. The sages were able to activate those specific cause-effect relationships. So this story begins in the subtle world of Vakunta, in that very high celestial plane, where this being, who we know as Ravana, but who had been known as Jaya, had not yet reached the level of selflessness and purity to enter there. But he was a devoted attendant, and so he was allowed to enter. And of course, his remnants of his desires and lust followed him to that plane, and begin to cause disruptions. And Narayan knew that he had to go back into the physical world to work out these remnants of the negative emotions. And so it was enacted out through this drama with the sages who he challenged, that he was to be sent to Earth and that he could do it in 3 lifetimes, but they would be very intense lifetimes, and he would really he would resist Narayan, and Narayan would have to free him. And so Ravana was the second of those 3 lifetimes. But it shows, as I learned this story, because I vaguely had heard of it, but I didn't really understand it. So the process for me, in the process, I came to understand these narratives that have been simplified for us. You know, the way the story comes down, the 4 sages want to visit Narayan, but the gatekeeper says, no, you can't. That's a very much of a simplification of the story. It was the fact that Ravana had not yet reached the level of advancement where he really could live in that world without causing disruption. And so I realized, one, these celestial worlds have a reality of their own, and they're very much affected by what happens here, and we're very much affected by what happens there. And so they're very much integrated, actually. And, you know, as we live our earth life, we rarely are conscious of what's taking place in the higher planes. We might call them, in today's scientific world, other dimensions, subtler dimensions of reality. And yet they are things are happening in those realms that we are not aware of, yet are affecting us. And so with so many of these stories, I think one of the most eye-opening stories for me was the story of Sage Ahilia, because the way that story is told is very, very different in the conventional narrative. And so I began to feel that a lot of my work was correcting many of these stories about the women sages who had been cast into the shadows. And that if we are going to rebalance our world, we have to retell the stories and bring them out of the shadows.
That's so amazing.